And this, and could they all be simultaneously still present in a vibrational sense? Something like music. The whole cosmos can be a symphony of infinite tones and chords, all in harmony, taking up no space or time. So I'd like your comment on that.
Basically, the answer to your question is yes. Because, of course, creation does not exist in time or space, even though you seem to experience it in time and in space. And ideas are as eternal as the mind that formed them. So all ideas are present and available to be experienced, I will say at every moment, even though that phrase implies time. In other words, at any moment in the experience of time that you're having, you can wake up from the sense of time that blinds you to what you have called past ideas, and you will find everything that has ever been created present. And it will not be like an infinite warehouse where there is so much of creation that it's just a jumble. It will all be in its perfect order. I cannot describe to you how you will experience that fact other than to say to you that all ideas are eternal as their maker and are therefore present and available to you at this moment to experience, if you dare to open yourself up to a larger experience than you're allowing at the moment. Of course, this then opens up a new subject. Why aren't you experiencing more at the present than you are experiencing? Even though most of you feel that you do invite a larger experience than what you're experiencing. And the reason is that in order to have a larger experience, you are going to have to change. You will not be able to believe you are the costume you're wearing at the moment, and without changing in any way within yourself, simply have a new, for lack of better words, visual experience of reality. And always, in order for change to occur, in order for you to become changed, you have to let go of the costume that you're wearing, the definition you're giving yourself. And why are you giving yourself a definition? You're giving yourself a definition to keep you safe. And you're holding on to the definition to keep you safe. And to you, from the sense of yourself that you have adopted by means of the costume, this means abandoning your defense and therefore becoming vulnerable. Intellectually, you know that you are opening up to reality. That's your desire, to open up to the clearer experience of reality as God is being it, to open up to the experience of what God is being. But your ego says, You may be opening yourself up to the dark side. You may be opening yourself up to danger. You will be opening yourself up to greater responsibility than you've ever had to practice before. There's going to be more for you to take care of, and you're already having trouble with the amount that's given to you. And so one way or another, the ego scares you into pulling your costume tighter around you because you can't dare to change. Let me have a new experience without changing, you say. And that's why for the last few gatherings I've been stressing this point that the truth that heals is not a string of words. It's not an intellectual process. It's the experience you have when, at the level of your heart, you let go of your defenses and step out into the void. Step out into God knows what. The real you hears those words, quote, God knows what, unquote, as something wonderful, as something to be embraced. But when the ego uses those words, God knows what, it means something to avoid. Early on, I told him, all of you, referring to him, all of you, in other words, all of what you really are, divinely speaking, is always present. All of you is always functioning. And all of you is always available. That was my way of inviting him to dare to let go of control and open up to God knows what. Because it's your birthright to be experiencing the wholeness of you, the wholeness of reality. Now, maybe you can't take the whole thing in one leap. And so you can begin in small ways in your relationships with each other, in the way you are willing to re-perceive your home or your job, you see. We don't have to overcome the whole illusion all at once. What has to happen is that in some small ways, the willingness to abandon your defense must be activated in ways that aren't overwhelming to you. Because as you have little experiences of the fact that trust into the unknown is practical, healthy, wholesome, and beneficial, you develop a backlog of experience that gives you more courage to take bigger steps. If a sparrow flies into your window and falls to the deck and appears to be dead, you can take that opportunity to raise the dead. And it will not seem as unsurmountable as raising 6,000 people from the dead. You start out with little things, and you test the infiniteness of God. not the infiniteness of your power to heal, but the infiniteness of God. You become willing to let the allness of God and the eternality of every idea God is expressing, you let that be the potential for yourself by opening up to something entirely different from what appears to be in your hands, a dead bird. And if the bird doesn't suddenly fly off, you say, okay, I am grateful that I have taken the time to challenge the limit of my current beliefs of what is possible. And I have taken time here to attempt to glorify God and not what I'm seeing in my hands. And then you continue to persist. You're not persisting against a dead bird. You're not persisting against death. You're persisting against your own belief of limitation. And you persist against your belief of limitation not by attacking the belief, but by giving your attention beyond the limit of the belief. By turning your attention to God and asking yourself, can some part of God, can some idea of God have suddenly ceased to be eternal? No. So what you're seeing there has to be an illusion. And all of what God is, and therefore all of what you are, must still be present there as the living expression of that sparrow. And it must be functioning, and it must be available. That's the fact. And so you reach beyond the appearance. You reach beyond the limits of your belief. And that constitutes disregarding your belief, which weakens your belief. And if your belief isn't weakened sufficiently to see that bird fly off, it's still been weakened. And so you just persist with every opportunity that comes into your experience. Because it's your birthright to be awake and experiencing the totality of what God is, being. That's your birthright. It cannot be taken away from you. You can ignore it. But it hasn't gone anywhere. And again, that's why you're not in the middle of a process of refining your soul so that you can become equal to or deserving of the fulfillment of being. It's your birthright that never was removed, never taken away. It's just that you have become significantly preoccupied with other things, imaginations. So you're not on a trek, you're not on a journey, you're not in a process. Although you can behave like you're in a process, and you can set a process up for yourself and walk through each step of the process, but all the time you're doing that, you're sidetracked from the immediate present perception of the fact that all of you is present, all of you is functioning, and all of you is available. That's the end of the answer. Anyone else have a comment about right here in the front? Wait for the microphone.
I just practically conked out when I went to bed, but before I totally conked out. release, release, release. And I thought, I remember Raj in one of your other gatherings had spoken very strongly about release and to put it up every place, on your mirror, on your refrigerator, every place. And I did that until pretty soon I wasn't even seeing any of those. I didn't even, someone said, what is all this? Oh, have I still got those up? So again, last night, I realized that dropping the costume for me would, I seem to feel that I need further clarification on release to drop the costume.
The way to drop the costume is to be as consistently as possible saying within yourself, Father, Mother, what is appropriate for me in this moment to be doing? What is my appropriate response to what this friend has said? What should I be doing? Where should I be going? Because whether you like to think of it this way or not, all of you, when you're in the ego, are nothing but conditioned responses to life. And you repeat patterns over and over. You find your favorite stores, you find your favorite way to get to the store, you find your favorite time to go to the store, and you even give evaluation to it so that if you're really being efficient and therefore a better person, you will go on certain days a certain way, and you sort of immortalize your habits. You see? And that's your costume. What your habit, oh, isn't that interesting? Your habit is your costume. Actually, Paul said, oh, isn't that interesting? Not me. So, how do you let go of the costume? You break the habit of your way of being in the world. And how do you break the habit? Well, certainly you could intellectually just give yourself a new design to follow. But that would be changing costumes, wouldn't it? So the way you break the habit is to say, as it says in the Course, today I will make no decisions by myself. And if you're not going to make any decisions by yourself, autonomously on your own, how are you going to do it? You're going to have to ask, what is appropriate? What should I do? Is it appropriate to go to the store now? If it is appropriate to go to the store now, which store should I go to? And which way should I go? And as you're on your way, listen. There is a story about a man who was on his way home from work, and he decided to listen, and he heard to pull in at a grocery store he never goes to. And when he got inside, he said, okay, here I am, what am I supposed to do? And he said, get a gallon of milk. Well, he had plenty of milk at home, but he got a gallon of milk. And he drove on further, and then he was told to turn at a certain corner, and he continued to listen, and he got on this street, and on a certain street in a part of town he had never been in, and he was told to take the milk to the third house on the left. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and so it made him very uncomfortable. he's going to walk up to this door at 1:30 in the morning when everybody's asleep and knock on the door and say, "I have a gallon of milk." And he almost drove off because the whole prospect was too embarrassing and so far out as to make him appear to be totally crazy. But he didn't drive off, and he finally did go up and knock on the door. And when the door was opened, he could hear back in the back part of the house a baby screaming. And the father came to the door, and the fellow said, "I have a gallon of milk here for you." And the man said, "Thank God, we have no food for our baby. She is, you can hear in what distress she's in, and we did not have money to buy the food. And thank you." I mean, it was he was an angel, in other words, for them. And the guidance was perfect and met the need. So when you head for the grocery store, don't assume that you know why you're really going out or where you will really end up. Because if you do know where you're going, if you have a plan and you are an expert at fulfilling your plans, you will still be in your habit. You will still be in your costume. And you will not be in the position to be a point of transformation in your world. So I think you've got it. How do you let go of your costume? By not reinforcing your habit. And listening for what to do instead. And doesn't this make ultimate sense? If the illusion you're experiencing, if the suffering you're experiencing is a result of claiming independence from God, the ability to be autonomous and to authorize things yourself, then isn't it obvious that the answer is to stop doing that, even though your ego says it's absolutely idiotic, and come back to your Father to say, "What would you have me do? What fulfills purpose in the larger picture for me to be doing or saying right now?" Because that's the way you break the isolation. See, your costume is a defense. It's armor. So how are you going to take off the armor? By not continuing to value autonomy. Thy will, Father, not mine, be done. Now, Paul can do this fairly well, fairly consistently. But the idea of abandoning his right to have time for himself, to be himself on his own, seems like a sacrifice that is too great to pay. And all of you, this experience awaits all of you, where you may make great strides, but it's the last 1/100% of your right to maintain yourself and do what you want to do that will hang you up. Because when you sacrifice that last 1/100%, the you thought you were becomes extinct. And that feels overwhelming to the ego, of course. But not to the you that is real. So, that's how you do it. You break the habit by doing something new. Asking, what is the Father's will here? And yielding to it. And ultimately, yielding to it totally. I'm glad you asked the question.
So am I.
Okay. Anyone else? The gentleman there with the glasses?
Good afternoon, Raj.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I want to thank you for all the help that you've given all of us. I can talk about that on a personal level because I can see the way my life is changing as I focus on and become aware of my own behavior and how it relates to your teachings.
So are you seeing the way in which you are changing?
Yes, I am. It's and it's a very joyful thing to watch. So thank you very much. And
I don't want you to mislead everyone. Has it always been a joyful process?
oh, absolutely. That was my next comment coming, is that at first, when I moved here from Southern California, it was hellacious. It was like as if I had moved into the depths of hell. Everything seemed to be against me. I hated where I lived. I'll give you an example. When I bought the house across the street, the folks there...
When you say across the street,
Yes.
that means, for those who are listening on the internet...
Yes. Across the street from where we're sitting right now at the gathering place here in Kingston. The folks there had a pond, had put a little cement pond in and stocked it with fish. And they fed the raccoons. And I felt that it wasn't appropriate to feed wild animals, especially when my neighbors told me that they ate their dog food. Are you still feeding the raccoons like the former owners did because they're eating our dog food? They get in the mud and then track across our nice white molding and on the railings on the porch and et cetera. So I didn't feel it was appropriate to feed the animals. So it was the raccoons. At first, I was chasing them off with a stick, and they would stay like 3 feet ahead of me. Then they just, kind of like climbed a tree and stuck out their tongue at me, and weren't afraid of that anymore. So then I took to the garden hose. I would squirt them with a garden hose to run them off. And after that would run them off for a while.
Like any good city boy would
Yes.
do.
Exactly. And then after a while, it was like that didn't bother them anymore. They would kind of like raise their legs so I'd get under their arms with the garden hose. So then I asked my neighbor, what does he do? And he said, well, I shoot them. I use a gun and shoot them. And I said, I couldn't possibly do that. And I asked another neighbor, and he said, well, I poison them with rat poisoning. And I said, oh, that's a horrible way to kill an animal. So all of a sudden, I'm realizing that there's a war going on here. And as I heard you speaking yesterday, I realized that many of us, myself included, with the war against the raccoons, are living in some kind of a war situation. We're at war with something. So the next escalation in my war was to get a CO2 BB pistol, and very carefully making sure that I hit him in the butt. Like my mother said, be careful, you'll put out an eye. So I wouldn't injure them. And what I found is that, like, the next day, 2 of my fish were missing. The first time I hit them in the butt. The second time I hit them in the butt, they came in and tore up the circulation pump in the pond. So there was a couple of things going on here. One was I recognized that I was escalating the war. And the second thing is I was amazed at the intelligence of the response that I was getting. So I said, okay, that's it. No more. Yes.
You might say the question was, who was terrorizing who?
Well, that's it. See, they came in the night when I was asleep and would do their thing.